The market was alive with noise and colors. Alien voices rose and fell like waves in the air. Merchants shouted, machines hummed, and strange fruits glowed under hanging lamps. Daniel, the human worker, walked through the crowd with a tired face. He carried a small crate in his arms, filled with mechanical parts. It was just another day for him. A day of work, a day of silence. He was used to the way aliens looked at him. Some stared with curiosity, some with cold eyes, and most simply ignored him. Humans were few here, and most worked simple jobs. Daniel never argued, he just wanted to survive. He kept his head down and tried not to draw attention. But fate had other plans that day. At the center of the market, an old alien lady walked slowly with a cane. Her skin was pale silver, her robes faded and torn. Her eyes seemed heavy with years of sorrow. No one stopped to notice her. No one cared. The crowd moved around her as if she were invisible. Suddenly, she stumbled, her cane slipped, and she fell hard onto the ground. The sound of her body hitting the floor echoed for a moment. But the marketplace did not stop. Merchants kept shouting. Buyers kept moving. A few glanced her way but quickly turned their eyes away. Helping her seemed dangerous, as if it broke some silent law. Daniel froze. His heart beating faster. He looked at her shaking hands as she tried to rise, but could not. He looked at the crowd, but no one stepped forward. His chest felt heavy, and he could not ignore it. He placed his crate on the ground and pushed through the crowd. Kneeling down, he reached out his hand. "Are you hurt?" he asked softly. The old lady lifted her head, and for a moment, her tired eyes glowed faintly with light. She whispered something in a voice too weak to hear. Daniel helped her up slowly, holding her arm so she would not fall again. The air around them changed. The crowd went silent. Every pair of alien eyes turned toward him. The silence was sharp, heavier than noise. Daniel felt the weight of their stares. His skin crawled under their gaze. The old lady clung to his arm, breathing hard, but she smiled faintly. Her smile was strange, as if she knew more than she showed. Whispers began to spread across the market. A word he did not understand passed from alien to alien. And then the guards arrived. They were tall, armored, their faces hidden behind masks. Their weapons glowed with red light. They moved without sound, forming a circle around Daniel and the old lady. One of them raised a scanner and pressed a button. A beam of light struck Daniel's face, marking it with a symbol. The crowd gasped. Softly, Daniel touched his cheek, confused and afraid. "What did I do wrong?" he asked, but no one answered. The guards did not speak to him, they only stared, their masks reflecting his own confused eyes. Then, as quickly as they came, they turned away. The circle opened, and they vanished back into the crowd. The silence remained cold and heavy. Daniel stood there with the old lady leaning on his arm. She looked at him again, her eyes deep and strange. "You chose," she whispered weakly. Before he could ask what she meant, she let go of his hand and disappeared into the crowd. It was as if she had melted into the sea of people. One moment she was there, the next moment she was gone. Daniel stood alone, his crate still on the ground. His chest rose and fell with unease. Around him, the crowd began to move again, but the whispers had not stopped. They followed him like shadows. He picked up his crate and walked away quickly, but his steps were heavy. Something inside him told him that his life had just changed. As he reached the end of the marketplace, he looked back once. The spot where the old lady had fallen was empty, but he could still feel her eyes on him, the glow, the strange whisper, the silence of the crowd. All of it pressed against his mind like a weight. He had only tried to help, but in this place, helping was dangerous, and though he did not yet know it, his choice had been noticed by forces far greater than he could imagine. The market lights flickered once, as if the city itself had seen what he did. Daniel shivered. The day that began like any other had turned into something else. He felt the mark on his cheek burning faintly under the skin. He whispered to himself, "What did I just do?" The question hung in the air, with no answer. Only silence followed him as he walked into the fading light of the evening. And the whispers grew louder behind his back, carrying his name like a warning. Daniel's sleep that night was broken. And restless, he tossed in his bed inside the narrow workers' quarters. The mark on his cheek felt warm, almost alive. Each time he touched it, a strange vibration ran through his skin. He tried to convince himself it was nothing, maybe just a scanner mark that would fade. But deep inside, he knew it was not so simple. At dawn, the factory horn echoed across the city. It was time for work, time for another long shift among machines and orders. Daniel forced himself up, dressed quickly, and walked toward the industrial sector. The streets were crowded with workers of many species. Most ignored him, but he felt the whispers. He caught fragments of words spoken in alien tongues. Though he could not understand them, he knew they were about him. Eyes lingered too long. Steps slowed near him. The memory of the market weighed on his chest like a stone. When he reached the factory gates, 2 supervisors were already waiting. Their faces were stern, their long robes dark. One of them raised a hand, stopping him before he could enter. "Daniel," the supervisor said, his voice sharp, "you are relieved of duty." The word struck Daniel like a blow. "Relieved?" he asked, confused. "What did I do wrong?" The supervisor's eyes narrowed. "You touched what should not be touched," he said coldly. "You interfered with one who is forbidden." Daniel shook his head, his heart racing. "I only helped her. She fell, she was hurt," he tried to explain. But the second supervisor stepped closer. His voice was lower, but more dangerous. "You have broken a law, even if you did not know it. Your contract is void, your place here is gone. You will leave, or worse will follow." Daniel's mouth went dry, his hands curled into fists, but he could not fight them. The gates of the factory closed behind the supervisors with a heavy clang. For years, this job had been his survival, his food, his shelter. Now it was gone. In a single morning, and all because he chose to help someone, he stood outside the gates as workers streamed past him. Some glanced at him with pity, others with hidden fear. No one spoke, no one dared. The city that had been his cage now felt even colder. He walked away slowly, each step heavy. His mind screamed with questions. Who was the old lady? Why did helping her bring punishment? And why did the mark on his cheek burn brighter when he thought of her? As he turned down a quiet street, he felt it again. The eyes, the whispers, the unseen weight. He quickened his pace, but the feeling did not fade. He stopped near a broken wall, trying to catch his breath. That was when he saw her again, the old alien lady, standing at the far end of the street, watching him. Her cane touched the ground softly as she walked closer, but her steps seemed too steady for her frail body. There was strength in her presence. Hidden under her worn robes, Daniel wanted to shout at her, ask why his life was destroyed because of her. But when he opened his mouth, no words came. Her eyes held his in silence. They were old, but deep, glowing faintly with strange light. "You paid the price," she whispered when she was close enough. "Kindness always has a price here." Daniel's fists trembled. "They fired me, they marked me, and for what? For helping you." His voice cracked with anger and confusion. The old lady tilted her head slightly. "You see only loss, but fate has opened a door for you." She reached out, and before Daniel could move, she touched the mark on his cheek with her finger. A flash of light passed through his skin. His vision blurred for a second, and he saw shapes, images, a starry sky, burning ships, chains falling from broken hands. Then it was gone. Daniel stumbled back, shaking. "What was that?" he demanded. The old lady only smiled faintly. "You are seen now. You cannot hide anymore. They fear compassion, for it awakens what they cannot control." Daniel's breath came fast, his chest tight. "I didn't ask for this," he said, almost to himself. But her words echoed in his ears like thunder. The sound of heavy boots broke the moment. Shadows moved at the corner of the street. Alien patrol soldiers appeared, their weapons glowing. The old lady stepped back, her eyes still locked on Daniel. "You must choose again," she whispered. Then before the soldiers reached them, she vanished into thin air. One moment she was there, the next she was gone. Only the faint glow in Daniel's mark remained. The soldiers spread out, their masks reflecting the light of the city. "Human," one of them barked. "You are summoned for questioning." Daniel's stomach twisted. He wanted to run, but his legs would not move. The mark on his cheek burned hot, pulsing like a heartbeat. Something deep inside told him this was only the beginning. He had lost his job, but he had gained something else, something dangerous, something that tied him to powers far greater than he understood. As the soldiers closed in, Daniel whispered to himself, "Why me?" But no answer came. Only the cold silence of the city and the faint whisper of fate moving around him. The soldiers dragged Daniel through the streets. Their armored boots struck the ground with sharp rhythm. The crowd parted as they passed, no one daring to speak. Daniel's arms were locked in steel cuffs, cold against his skin. He kept his head down, but inside his mind spun in chaos. Why had this all happened? Why did one act of kindness turn his life upside down? They pushed him into a small holding room made of dark stone. The walls hummed faintly, as if alive with hidden machines. A single light burned from above, casting long shadows. The soldiers left without a word, the heavy door closing behind them. Silence filled the space, broken only by the sound of his own breathing. Daniel sat on the floor, his back against the wall. The mark on his cheek pulsed with faint light. He closed his eyes, trying to calm his racing thoughts. But then he felt it, a gentle warmth inside his pocket. Confused, he reached in and pulled out something small. It was a crystal, glowing softly. One he had never seen before. His heart skipped a beat. Had the old alien woman slipped this into his pocket? The crystal trembled in his palm, and then it spoke. Not with sound, but with light. A shimmering image formed above it. Like a ghostly flame, it was her, the old alien lady, though her figure looked younger, stronger. Her robes flowed like silver water, and her eyes shone with power. Daniel stared, in shock as her voice filled the room. "You helped me when no one else dared," she said gently. "For that, I give you truth." Daniel's breath caught. "Truth," he whispered. "What truth?" The hologram continued. "I am not who I appeared to be. I am a guardian, one of the last. My people were broken long ago. My power sealed, my name erased. I wandered the markets in disguise, waiting for the one who would not turn away." Her eyes seemed to pierce through him. "You human, chose compassion in a place ruled by fear. And because of that choice, the mark has found you." Daniel touched his cheek, feeling the faint burn again. "What is this mark? What did they do to me?" he asked. The hologram flickered, her face serious. "They tried to brand you as a warning, but the mark woke instead. It is a symbol. Older than their empire. It means you have been chosen, not by them, but by fate." Daniel's heart pounded. He shook his head. "I'm no hero. I only helped because no one else did." The woman's image leaned closer. "And that is why. You are the one. Power does not awaken in the cruel. It awakens in the kind." Daniel clenched his fists, anger and fear boiling together. "Because of this, I lost everything. My job, my life." Her voice grew softer. "You lost a cage but gained a key. The world you know is built on chains, and you have the power to break them." Before he could respond, the hologram wavered. "The patrols will not stop hunting you. They fear what you might become. You must leave this place tonight. Follow the crystal. It will guide you to allies." Her figure faded, the glow sinking back into the small stone. Daniel was left in silence once more, the crystal warm in his hand. The heavy door creaked open suddenly. A soldier entered, scanning the room with sharp eyes. Daniel quickly hid the crystal in his pocket. The soldier glanced at him, then barked, "You are released for now." The cuffs clicked open. Daniel rubbed his wrists, confused. Released? Why would they free him after marking him as a threat? The soldier gave no answer. He shoved Daniel toward the exit. Outside, the city lights burned against the night sky. Daniel walked with slow steps, his mind heavy with questions, but beneath his fear, a small spark of determination had begun to burn. Back in his small room, Daniel sat at the edge of his bed. He held the crystal again, staring at its faint glow. The old woman's words echoed in his ears. A cage lost, a key gained. He thought of the images he had seen when she touched his mark. Chains breaking, stars burning, ships in flames. Were these visions of the past or glimpses of the future? As the night deepened, Daniel felt something stir inside him. It was not strength, not yet, but a pull, a direction, as if the crystal whispered where he must go. He looked out the small window of his room. The city stretched endlessly, towers glowing, ships crossing the dark sky. He had always thought he was small, powerless, a shadow among greater beings, but now, fate had tangled him in something far larger. He pressed the crystal to his chest, feeling its warmth steady his heartbeat. Then he whispered to himself, "If this is a door, I have no choice but to walk through it." The night seemed to listen, and far away, in places Daniel had yet to see, the whisper of his choice began to stir ancient forces awake. The morning came with a heavy sky. Daniel stepped out of his room, the crystal hidden safely in his pocket. He tried to act normal, moving through the streets like any worker, but the stares were sharper now. Every glance seemed to follow him longer than before. Every whisper seemed to carry his name. The mark on his cheek pulsed again, faint but steady. It felt like a heartbeat that did not belong to him. He touched it once and quickly pulled his hand away. The warmth inside the skin only reminded him of what the old alien lady had said. He was chosen, not by them, but by fate. Daniel did not know if he believed it, but the fear in the air told him that others did. He walked toward the city square. Ships roared above, their engines shaking the ground. Patrol soldiers stood in every corner, their weapons glowing faint red. Daniel lowered his head, hoping to slip past them, but fate never let him hide for long. A voice shouted from behind, "There, the human." With the mark, Daniel froze, his blood turning cold. He turned his head slowly and saw 3 soldiers pushing through the crowd. Their masks glimmered under the city lights, the glowing red eyes fixed directly on him. The crowd parted quickly, afraid to be near. Daniel's heart pounded. He wanted to run, but his legs hesitated. The soldiers raised their weapons. The leader barked an order. "By command of the council, you are under arrest." Something in Daniel snapped. He thought of the old woman's whisper, "You must choose again." And without another thought, he turned and ran. The marketplace blurred as he sprinted. Shouts rose behind him, the soldiers chasing hard. The crowd scattered out of his way. Alien merchants shouted angrily as their stalls were knocked over. Fruit spilled. Machines crashed to the ground. But Daniel did not stop. He darted into a narrow alley. His breath came fast, his heart pounding in his chest. The mark on his cheek grew hotter, almost guiding him through the maze of streets. Behind him, the soldiers' heavy boots echoed closer. Daniel turned another corner, and suddenly a hand reached out from the shadows. It grabbed his arm and yanked him into a hidden passage. Daniel struggled for a moment until he saw the face of the stranger. A man not human, but humanoid with dark bronze skin and sharp golden eyes. "Quiet," the stranger hissed. "You want to live? Follow me." Before Daniel could reply, the soldiers stormed past the alley. Their glowing weapons scanned the streets, but they did not see him. The stranger pushed Daniel forward into a tunnel beneath the city. The air inside was damp and heavy, the walls lined with old pipes. Daniel stumbled but kept moving. "What is this place?" he asked breathlessly. The stranger glanced back with a smirk. "A path for those who refuse chains." They moved deeper into the tunnels. The sounds of the city faded above them. Only the drip of water and the echo of their footsteps remained. Daniel finally slowed, his chest burning. "Who are you?" he demanded. The stranger's golden eyes glowed faintly in the dark. "Name's Kale. and I know what you carry." Daniel's hand instinctively touched the pocket where the crystal rested, his stomach twisted. "You mean the old woman?" he asked cautiously. Cale nodded, his voice low. "She's no ordinary beggar, she's a guardian. One of the last of her kind, and she chose you, human." Daniel shook his head. "I never asked for this, I only helped her because she fell." Cale's smirk faded, his tone serious now. "And that is exactly why she chose you. Compassion is rare in this city, and dangerous, but it is the only weapon that cannot be controlled." They reached a small hidden chamber under the tunnels. Lanterns glowed dimly on the walls. Inside were a few others, rebels of different alien races. They looked at Daniel with curiosity, even suspicion. Cale gestured to him. "This is the one, the marked human." Daniel felt the weight of their eyes. He raised his hands slightly, his voice shaking. "I don't know what you think I am. I'm not a fighter. I'm not a leader." One of the rebels stepped forward. A tall alien with scales across his arms. "But you are marked. That means fate is already decided." Daniel clenched his fists, anger rising again. "They fired me. They hunted me. They ruined everything. And now you say fate decided. What if I refuse? What if I walk away?" Cale stepped closer, his golden eyes hard. "Then they will kill you, and the chance to change everything dies with you." Silence filled the chamber. Daniel's chest heaved with every breath. He thought of the old woman's eyes, glowing softly with gratitude. He thought of her words, "You chose." And though fear burned in his heart, a spark of defiance grew beside it. The crystal in his pocket pulsed with warmth. It was as if it heard his thoughts. Daniel looked at the rebels around him, their tired eyes, their silent hope. Then he whispered to himself, "If I run forever, I stay nothing. If I stand, maybe I become something more." The chase was not over. It had only just begun. But Daniel now realized he was not just running from them. He was running towards something bigger, something waiting in the shadows of destiny. Asterisk. The hidden chamber was silent for a long moment. Daniel sat on a rough stone bench, breathing heavily. The rebels watched him with guarded eyes. Cale stood near the lantern light, his arms crossed, his golden eyes sharp. Finally, Daniel broke the silence. "Who is she really, that old woman? Why did helping her bring all of this?" Cale's gaze softened slightly. "She is older than you can imagine. Long before the council ruled, there were guardians. They protected knowledge, balanced power, and defended the weak. But the council feared them, so they hunted them down, one by one. Many were killed, others vanished. The woman you helped, she was their leader once." Daniel blinked in shock. "Their leader? You mean she is some kind of queen?" Cale shook his head slowly. "Not a queen, not a ruler, more than that. She carried wisdom, strength, and something rare, a mercy. Her name was Serana, and she vanished decades ago. The council claimed she was dead, but whispers said she was hiding, waiting, searching for the one who could awaken her power again." Daniel's hands tightened around the crystal in his pocket. The warmth inside it pulsed gently. He remembered her frail body, her weak steps, her tired eyes. It was hard to imagine that same woman once powerful, leading others. He shook his head. She looked broken, just an old beggar. Cale's voice grew low, serious. "That is what they wanted her to become. They stole her power, sealed it. But power like hers cannot vanish completely. It only waits. And now it answers to you." The other rebels leaned closer, listening. One of them, a young alien with sharp horns, asked, "Does he even know what the mark means?" Daniel looked up sharply. "What does it mean? Tell me." Cale sighed and walked toward him. "The mark is not just a scar. It is a symbol tied to the Guardian's oath. Whoever carries it has been chosen to stand against chains. It means you are bound to their cause, whether you wish it or not." Daniel's heart sank. "I didn't ask for this. I never wanted it." Cale leaned closer, his golden eyes glowing faintly. "Do you think any of us asked for chains, human? Do you think Serana asked to watch her people fall? Destiny is not asked for, it is given." The rebels murmured in agreement. Their eyes burned with quiet hope. Daniel felt their stares pressing on him like a weight. He wanted to scream, to throw the crystal away. But when he touched it, he felt Serana's faint warmth again. Her whisper returned to his mind. "You chose." Cale sat down across from him, his tone calmer now. "You want to know why she smiled when you helped her? Because in all these years, no one dared to lift her. Not even once. The council taught fear. They taught silence, but you broke it. Human, with that simple act, you woke a fire they cannot control." Daniel looked down at his hands. They trembled, not with weakness, but with something he did not understand. "I'm no fighter," he muttered. Cale gave a small grin. Neither was Serana. "When she first began, but compassion is sharper than any blade. It cuts through fear, and it makes others rise, even when hope is gone." The chamber grew quiet again. The rebels shifted, their eyes never leaving Daniel. He felt their hope. Fragile but heavy, it scared him more than the soldiers. Because hope was dangerous. Hope meant responsibility, and he had never been responsible for anyone but himself. Suddenly, the crystal in his pocket flared with light. Everyone gasped softly as its glow filled the chamber. The hologram of Serana appeared again, faint but clear. Her voice was calm, almost like a mother's. "Daniel, you walk with doubt, but doubt is natural. What matters is the choice beyond fear." She turned her gaze toward the rebels. "And you, children of the broken, do not fear the chains forever. The time has come to rise again." Daniel stared at her glowing image. "Why me? Why not someone stronger, braver?" Her smile was gentle, her words steady. "Because you acted without thought of reward. You chose kindness when all others chose silence. That is strength they cannot teach, and it is strength they cannot kill." The image began to fade, the crystal dimming again. Daniel reached toward it, desperate. "Wait, don't go. Tell me what to do." But Serana's voice only whispered as she vanished. "Follow the light, and you will find me." The chamber fell back into silence. Daniel's chest rose and fell quickly. Cale placed a firm hand on his shoulder. "You see now, you are tied to her. Her past is now your path." Daniel closed his eyes. The fear remained, but beneath it burned something else. Something he had never felt before. A small spark of purpose, fragile but real. He opened his eyes again, staring at the rebels. "If she needs me, then I'll find her, but I don't promise to be what you think I am." Cale smiled faintly. "None of us promise, we only try." And for the first time Daniel felt he was no longer alone. But he also knew the road ahead would be dangerous. The council would not stop, and Serana's past was now tied to his future. The tunnel shook with distant echoes. Daniel stood with Cale and the rebels, their faces tense, their bodies ready. The faint glow of lanterns cast long shadows across the stone walls. Whispers filled the chamber as word spread. Patrol soldiers had found the hidden paths. The council's hunters were coming. Daniel's heart pounded. He looked around at the rebels. A mix of species, all scarred and weary. None of them looked like soldiers, but their eyes held fire. Cale tightened his grip on a curved blade, his golden eyes fierce. "This is it," he said. "They will come fast, but we must hold the passage." Daniel swallowed hard. "I'm not ready for this. I've never fought anyone." Cale glanced at him, his tone sharp. "No one is ready until the moment arrives. Courage is born when there is no other choice." The rebels armed themselves with old weapons, blades, staffs, even broken tools. Daniel felt small, weak, but the crystal in his pocket pulsed with warmth. It beat like a second heart, steady and strong. He pressed his hand against it, whispering, "Serana, if you see me, I don't know how to do this." The ground trembled. Heavy boots thundered through the tunnels. The glow of red weapons lit the walls, shadows twisting across the stone. Daniel stepped back as fear gripped him, but Cale's voice cut through the tension. "Stand, human. If you run now, all hope dies." The soldiers burst into the chamber. Their masks gleamed, their rifles aimed. The rebels cried out and charged, their voices echoing through the tunnels. Blades clashed, weapons roared. The fight began. Daniel froze for a heartbeat. The chaos blurring around him, sparks flew, cries echoed. The rebels pushed against the soldiers, but the council troops were stronger, better armed. One rebel fell. Another screamed as a rifle bolt struck the wall beside him. Daniel's breath came fast, his chest heavy. He wanted to run. But something inside him refused. The mark on his cheek burned suddenly. The crystal in his pocket flared with blinding light. Daniel gasped as the warmth surged through his body. It felt as if fire and lightning raced through his veins. The world around him slowed for a moment. He saw every movement, every spark, every strike in sharp clarity. A soldier aimed at Cale, his weapon glowing red. Without thinking, Daniel raised his hand. The crystal pulsed, and a shield of light burst out. The bolt struck the shield and shattered into sparks. Cale turned in shock, then grinned fiercely. "So it begins," he shouted. Before leaping back into the fight, the rebels saw the light. Their cries grew louder. Hope flared in their voices as they pushed harder. Daniel stood trembling, his arms still glowing with strange energy. He stared at his hands, stunned. I did that," he whispered. Another soldier rushed him. Blade raised, Daniel stumbled back, fear clawing at him. But the crystal pulsed again. Guiding his movement, he raised both hands, and a wave of light knocked the soldier backward. The crowd gasped, rebels and soldiers alike. The human had power, real power. The fight raged on. The rebels rallying around Daniel, they fought with renewed strength, their spirits lifted by the sight of the impossible. The soldiers pressed hard, but for the first time they hesitated. Their red eyes flickered as they saw the mark glowing bright on Daniel's cheek. Whispers spread even among them. "Guardian's heir," one muttered, before striking again. Daniel's body ached, his breath came ragged. Each pulse of light drained him, but he could not stop. He blocked, he pushed, he fought clumsily but with desperate strength. Every time he thought he would fall, the crystal steadied him. He felt Serana's presence, faint but near, as if her voice whispered inside his heart, "You are not alone." The rebels formed a line around him. Cale shouted orders, blades clashing against soldier steel. Together they forced the patrol back, inch by inch. Finally, with a cry of fury, the last soldier fell to the ground, his weapon clattering across the stone. Silence followed, broken only by the ragged breathing of the rebels. Daniel dropped to his knees, exhausted. The glow on his cheek faded slowly. The crystal dimmed. Cale placed a firm hand on his shoulder, his grin wide despite the blood on his face. "You stood, human. You stood when it mattered." The rebels murmured in awe, their eyes fixed on Daniel. Some whispered his name, others simply stared at the mark. For them, he was no longer just a human. He was a sign, a spark of hope in the darkness. Daniel raised his head, sweat dripping, his chest rising and falling. He looked at the fallen soldiers, at the rebels still standing. His voice was weak but steady. "I didn't want this fight, but if they come again, I won't run." The chamber fell silent, the rebels staring at him in quiet respect. Cale nodded once, his golden eyes gleaming. Then the first step is taken. The battle had ended, but Daniel knew it was only the beginning. The council would not forgive this. They would send more, stronger forces, but something had changed both in the rebels and in him. For the first time, he felt the truth of Serana's words. Kindness had led him here. Compassion had given him power. And now fate was no longer something to fear. It was something to face. The chamber still smelled of smoke and dust. Broken weapons lay scattered across the floor. The rebels stood silent, their eyes fixed on Daniel. He sat on the ground, exhausted, his hands trembling. The crystal in his pocket no longer glowed, but its warmth still lingered. The mark on his cheek pulsed faintly, a reminder that the fight was far from over. Cale broke the silence first, his golden eyes sharp and proud. "You fought, human. And because of you, we still stand." Daniel looked up at him, shaking his head slowly. "I barely knew what I was doing. It was the crystal. It saved us, not me." Cale crouched beside him, his voice firm. "No, it was you. The crystal only answers to the heart that carries it." The rebels murmured in agreement, their voices low but filled with awe. Daniel felt the weight of their stares, heavy and strange. He had never been anyone important, never more than a worker in the shadows. Now these people looked at him as if he carried their future. The thought terrified him, yet deep inside, it also lit a spark of strength. Suddenly, the crystal flared again. A beam of soft light filled the chamber. Serana's image appeared, stronger than before. Her robes shimmered, her presence powerful. The rebels gasped. Some dropped to their knees in respect. Daniel's chest tightened as her glowing eyes fell on him. "You stood when fear told you to run." Serana's voice echoed gently. "You gave light where darkness reigned. For this, the path is opened." Daniel rose unsteadily, staring at her. "What path? What do you want from me?" Her image stepped closer, her voice steady but kind. "The council grows weaker then. They seem, their power is built on fear, but fear crumbles when compassion rises. You, human, have awakened what they thought was gone forever. The bond of the guardians." Daniel's throat tightened. "I'm not a guardian. I don't even understand what I've done." Serana smiled faintly, her glowing eyes soft. "No one begins as what they must become. Even I was once only a voice among many. But the choice you made in the marketplace has set a fire in motion. A fire they cannot extinguish." The rebels raised their heads, hope gleaming in their tired eyes. Kale stood tall, gripping his blade. "Then let the fire spread," he said firmly. Serana's gaze swept across the chamber, her voice filled with quiet power. "The chains of this world will not break in a single night, but every act of defiance, every stand of courage, brings the dawn closer. And now, Daniel, you are no longer only a survivor, you are a beginning." Her words struck Daniel's heart like thunder. He remembered the day before, carrying crates in silence. Ignored, forgotten. He remembered the old woman's fall, the silence of the crowd, the choice he made, a simple act, but it had torn open a door to destiny. He clenched his fists, his breath steadying. "Then I won't waste it. If this is the path, I'll walk it." Serana's image softened, her eyes glowing brighter. "Good, because soon the storm will come, and when it does, you must stand not as one, but as many." Her figure faded, the crystal dimming once more, but the warmth remained, steady in Daniel's hand. The rebels slowly gathered around him. Some bowed their heads, others placed their hands on their hearts. Daniel felt their hope pressing on him like a weight. But this time, it did not crush him. It strengthened him. He looked at them, his voice low but firm. "I can't promise victory, but I can promise this. I won't run, and I won't let their fear silence me." Kale stepped forward, his golden eyes gleaming with pride. "Then we follow you, human, wherever this path leads." The rebels nodded, their faces fierce with new fire, the chamber filled with quiet determination. A unity born not from power, but from choice, from a single act of kindness that had become a spark of rebellion. Daniel walked toward the broken tunnel entrance. The smell of smoke still hung heavy, but beyond it, the city lights burned. He looked at the towers above, the ships crossing the dark sky. For the first time, he did not feel small beneath them. He felt part of something greater, something waiting to be written. The mark on his cheek glowed faintly again, not with pain this time, but with steady warmth. He touched it gently, whispering to himself, "I was fired from a job, but hired by fate." The words felt strange, yet true, a quiet promise between him and the future. The rebels stood behind him, silent but ready. Kale's voice rang out, strong and clear. "Then let this be the beginning. The council will know fear, not from their power, but from ours." Daniel took a deep breath. The path ahead was uncertain, dangerous, maybe even impossible, but his steps no longer trembled. For the first time in his life, he was not just surviving. He was moving towards something greater, a destiny born not from strength, but from compassion. And in the heart of the city, where shadows ruled and fear reigned, A new future began with the simple choice of a human who refused to turn away. Asterisk.